When the Clippers signed Kawhi Leonard and traded for Paul George in the summer of 2019, the expectations were clear: championship or bust. On paper, they were neck and neck with the Lakers, but they shockingly bowed out in the West semis.
Well, for the Clippers, this is a collapse they'll think about all summer. Never really in sync. Now, their two stars, 28-year-old Leonard and 30-year-old Paul George, still signed, and they can come back the same team next year and be one of the favorites, but this was a golden opportunity this year.
But George didn't see the upset loss the same way almost everyone else did, or so he said.
I think internally, we've always felt this is not a championship or bust year for us. We can only get better the longer we stay together and the more we're around each other. The more chemistry for this group, the better.
It was clearly a cop-out. It's not like they lost a grueling series against LeBron and AD. They choked, and his teammates evidently agree. PG has since become the face of that embarrassing elimination. Playoff P morphed into Pandemic P, PG 13%, Poverty P, and an array of other nicknames. But regardless, George landed himself a 4-year, $176 million contract extension and simultaneously declared that he is a Clipper for life. And sure, he's well worth that kind of money, but the more important question is he the right guy to pair alongside Kawhi Leonard for the foreseeable future? From leadership issues to an unwillingness to adapt, it sure looks like he isn't. At his best, George is one of the top 15 players in the NBA, and just 2 seasons ago, he was a top 3 MVP candidate. To put the money he's making into perspective, Chris Middleton inked a 5-year, $180 million deal with the Bucks just last year, and Tobias Harris signed with the Sixers for the exact same amount of money. Neither is as good as George is. From a pure basketball fit, the duo of Leonard and George should make sense as they're among the league's very best two-way wings. So what went wrong for George? He now claims ex-head coach Doc Rivers didn't use him correctly.
The way I was being used, I felt like I was, Doc was trying to play me as like a Ray Allen or like a JJ Redick, like all pin downs, all like, I can do it, but that ain't my game, right? You know what I mean? I need some flow, I need some mixes of pick and rolls, I need some post-ups.
All that.
Just different touches, you know what I mean? And so it was just, that last season was just hard overall.
To which Doc responded with,
"Well, that's just Paul's opinion. I enjoy coaching Paul. I think if you go back and look at the stats, Paul played in more pick and rolls this last year than he ever did in his entire career. So I don't know how that's possible. And I wouldn't mind playing like Ray Allen. If I was a player, I think Ray Allen was pretty special."
And Doc is right. George finished last season with a career-high 33% of his total plays in the pick and roll. And as for wanting more ISOs, he's never been an efficient isolation player. As pointed out by ESPN's Zach Lowe, George has managed to crack 1 point per possession on isolations once in his last 7 seasons. And if Doc actually used him as a spot-up shooter, the Clippers probably would have played better. George has shot nearly 40% on catch-and-shoot jumpers 6 out of his last 7 seasons. Just last season, he generated 1.16 points per possession when he was running off screens, compared to 0.99 points per possession out of the pick and roll. The data suggests that George is more like Ray Allen or JJ Redick than he thinks. Maybe self-awareness is the issue here. The Clippers needed and still need a leader who understands his strengths and is accountable when things go south. And this isn't a new issue for Paul George. Remember when he said this after Damian Lillard sent him and the Thunder packing in the 2019 playoffs?
Yeah. I mean, that's a bad shot. I don't care what anybody says, that's a bad shot.
According to an exhaustive account of the Clippers' troubles last season from The Athletic's Joe Van Buha, George and Leonard were also operating in a vastly different universe than their fellow Clippers, and the preferential treatment didn't sit well with their teammates. As Buha noted, it's not that other teams don't bend the rules for their stars, it's that George and Leonard's teammates didn't buy in. But it was a far bigger problem with George, whose teammates clearly didn't trust him to lead, nor viewed him as being on the same level as a two-time Finals MVP in Leonard.
I've also been told that some of the role players on the team actually think they're as good as Paul George. So they are having problems with the special treatment that he's gotten from Doc Rivers. They can handle Kawhi getting the special treatment because for the most part, but for a couple games against Denver, obviously, he delivered. You know what you were getting from him.
As Doc appears to have confirmed, between George's approach and his uneven play, the Clippers became completely unresponsive to him. And despite all that, the Clippers opted to extend George and solidified him as a part of their core for the foreseeable future, obviously believing he can undo whatever damage he did in that locker room. Maybe the maturity of veteran addition Serge Ibaka brings some calm to the storm, but it's hard to believe Lou Williams and Patrick Beverley are offering a clean slate. So is George worth the money? Absolutely. But is he the right guy for Kawhi and the Clippers? I have to say, no. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.